passed. On the 18th of November, I'm calling the Eastham Water Management Committee to order. I was thinking, since we have two guests with us today, it might be just helpful to go around the table and just do a short introduction so you have some idea of what our names are. I believe we have Mr. Merkin, first name? Bud, okay, and we have Scott Lewis, who was here last month. So I'm Charles Harris, and the chair, and either direction.
Adele Blong.
Hi, Jane Crowley, Eastham Health Agent.
Mike Gazowski.
Marcel Politz.
Bill Nugent.
Roger Dumas.
There we go.
Roger Dumas.
All right. Jane, why don't we stop?
Well, maybe since Janet isn't here yet, why don't we start with some of the bureaucratic stuff, like approval of the minutes?
Sure.
That out
Oh,
of the way.
that's a good suggestion, except for Janet's minutes, because her
Well,
minutes.
except if nobody has any changes, then she doesn't have to be here. If people want to discuss we'll have to table it till she gets here.
Sure. Would you want to go first then, Adele?
Well, I don't know how long ago anybody read these things. They're the minutes from August that I guess they were sent out before the September meeting, but I guess they were not acted on. So-
They have not been acted upon. I felt it was appropriate for you to be here. So we have paper copies in in front of you for the 12th of August. I don't have any.
Yeah, I missed that one, so.
I also was not present.
All right. I was not here.
No.
So then, well, if, as I say, I don't have any, and you say, Roger, you weren't here?
No, the only other person is Bill.
Bill?
Do you have any corrections to the minutes? Or?
No.
Okay, well then,
All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes,
aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
An aye and aye. Aye, no. Okay, gives us just three. The three, and that's all we're going to get for this. All right, let's see. We have Roger's minutes then, from the 16th of September.
Which you sent out, I guess, what, about a week ago, right?
Yeah.
So they've been out there.
Okay. Roger, I don't have any comments.
I don't either.
No late catch-up information, huh? So it's up to Bill and Mike and Marcel.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
So I assume we have a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I guess, Roger, you said, yeah,
Yeah.
5. 5. All right, so we'll skip over Janet's minutes until she arrives. All right, let's see if we can find another topic that would kind of be neutral to Janet. So,
What's Dredge Rock Harbor? Is that
Well-
update, or?
Yeah. For one thing, I wanted everybody to know it is going on. You know, the equipment is down there. I had hoped to go down and just kind of watch a little bit and see how it all goes for my own education. I am assuming that they are putting the scoop down into the water and collecting that dark organic material that's in the boat basin. I did go down there, at least a month ago, and I found that all the poles that were submerged, that they had already pulled out, were lying on the dock, and I saw enough sort of mechanical damage to it, I assumed, just by the ice and stuff like that, such that I guess you have to put in new poles. The old poles didn't look like they were good enough to put back. My understanding was they pull the poles out anyways because they need freedom to get the scoop where they want to get the scoop and that kind of thing. So other than that,
Charles, what's the timeline for the dredging? When are they supposed to
Uh,
complete it?
I think they've got another 90 days in their window.
No, I believe it was
No,
December 1st because that's the right whale migration.
Yeah, the whales come in
They
December.
have to be done
yeah.
by December 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I stand corrected then. I know that they had to stop so they wouldn't endanger the whales. So, okay, so it's getting,
I think Mike is right, that's the date I recall.
So where are they putting the stuff?
well, they're dumping it out in Cape Cod Bay at a place that's properly designated. And it's actually apparently the place they used when they did all that channel work in the Boston area. I guess when they were doing the sewage treatment plants and all that kind of stuff. So there is a place out there for that kind of thing. Okay, well, we got another topic on here, the FEMA special flood maps. I have looked at them to try and get a side-by-side difference, what the original was and what the new information is. And I was thinking that if nothing else, we should just kind of pull one sheet and do the same thing so we get a sense of what's on there. Or we might even want to look at more sheets. I have been slow in moving in that direction. Other subjects are pretty busy, but I still kind of think that might be a good thing for this group to do. We might have some insight that has not come to light. You can go on the town website and you can call up the maps. The situation is, though, you're looking at a very large map, a map that's got, I don't know, at least two miles one way and 1.5 miles or so the other way, and you can't see much detail. I mean, basically, there's no doubt that the map's there and all the details there, but if you need a very big screen like this in order to kind of actually see things that would help you make some judgments as to what you're seeing there and whatnot. So it's still moving into the future. All right. Let's see. Well, it's maybe on my list here. We could talk about, I guess on Minister Schoolhouse Pond. My thoughts are that I still want to get to the point where I have information that clearly says don't do anything further, or see if you could do something further. And but I have not done anything more on that, basically because I say the 208 planning process has consumed a lot of my time, and I think I sent an email to the woman who leads the Pond Abutters, telling her that I'm in a kind of a holding position because I don't have the time to go into that. In my memory, we were hoping that Liz Gordon in 8 weeks could give us some thoughts when they held the pond education meeting. What was it, back in September?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the subject didn't come up. We were busy with all the other agenda at that time. I'm slowly coming to the point that there is no silver bullet, but both in the sense of what the science is and what we can afford. And I did not have that conclusion in my head as much as 90 days ago, but I'm seeing that it could very well be that humans, with the money they have, are kind of not in a good position. And again, but that's just sort of intuition speaking at this point. I'd still like to see some good numbers that indicate that to me, and that's what I was hoping to continue to work on. All right.
Charles, I didn't understand what you meant when you said humans with the money they have are not in a good position.
Sure.
No, I'm only saying, I'm not questioning it, I just don't understand what humans are we talking about?
Take some interpretation.
Well,
You mean that the town doesn't have the money, or?
well, I would say the word affordability,
Okay, all right. I got that before, and I thought you were saying something different, okay,
and I would say cost benefit.
okay.
You know, how much are you willing to devote your time and your money to how much gain the various technologies that we have available to us at this time could help us with. It's well, perhaps from some of the other work that we're doing, particularly in the 208 business, we'll be able to kind of get a good number as to how much the decline in water quality impacts us in terms of a cost. You know, if we don't do something, what are we going to have to face as a cost? And therefore, are we willing to spend something to kind of offset that in some way? Does that make sense? Yeah,
Have they
okay.
told you they weren't willing to pay for it?
What's that?
Have they told you they weren't willing to pay for it? The letters?
The contrary. Sharon Shipley has said, her sensing is that the abutters are willing to put down their own money, at least in some way. And I'm attracted to that idea,
Absolutely, yeah.
because it is clear evidence that there are others who have that level of commitment. And in the sense that if we did something, if this sort of, if others came to us a year from now and said, well, you set a precedent by helping Minister Schoolhouse Pond, can't you help my pond? And we have other ponds in town. And I would say, well, that's nice. Do you need help to the extent that you're willing to contribute money? And I would kind of like that, because it gives me assurances that I'm just not leading, or the committee's not leading the town on a wild goose chase.
Do you have any sense of how much money they're talking about?
Well,
Well, do you have a sense of what something would cost?
yeah, I do.
A sense of a something, and what would it cost?
I think the capital investment would be $20,000, and I think the electricity cost would be $700 or more dollars a year. And that's just sort of the rough estimate that's coming from all those different providers that whose catalogs I read and saw what they were selling and tried to figure out, how good the science was and how practical it was.
You're talking about air sparging.
The air.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can certainly see why Liz Morgan and Nate Weeks recommended, Warren recommended the solar bees. And they
They
recommended,
put it out there as a potential technology to evaluate and to look at. But in the end, they are still on hold in terms of having a high level of confidence, given the cost, given the potential outcome. So therefore, that wasn't their forward thinking. So they're I would say they're still in a holding pattern. But again, there is a cost associated with that technology that was pretty high with not a solid history. So therefore, looking at the projects on the Cape that are, currently have the Santuit, for instance, and Harwich, the outcome still is very speculative, I would say, and the benefit hasn't really proven itself for the cost that, so I don't think that they were negative, it's just they're not positive either, so it was sort of the jury's still out on that technology.
Who are they?
These were the consultants that were hired by the town. Ecologics, who, Liz Moran is the principal scientist there, she's a limnologist, and they worked together with GHD, so the two companies together did our pond remediation projects, and also other planning that we've done in the past.
So if the abutters are willing to pay for it, just present it to them, they can choose.
yeah, basically, that was my idea.
That's been done
We
in
don't
other
have an-
towns.
We don't have to have an opinion on
Private
it.
citizens have paid successfully for, technologies to be installed and maintained.
Yes, yeah, I was hoping as an individual, I could get on a sheet of paper the facts, what the science was.
Sure, yeah, we should help them in any way we can, but we don't have to make a choice for them.
No,
It's their
no,
money.
no, but, yeah, that's, I agree with that. The,
How does the electricity work? Where do they run it from?
it would be coming from the NSTAR net. And,
Yeah, well, I know it comes from NSTAR, but I mean, I'm just thinking of the basic question of where do they run the electric line from?
well, let's see, I had that same question. And what I have done is I've gone and looked around at all the houses around the pond, and I have identified two places in the north end of the pond where it's feasible to see an electric meter on somebody's property with an agreement with that owner, and a meter there, and then the line goes down to the pond, and it powers an electric device that does the work. And,
Like aeration.
yeah, as again, I was saying is that the concept of using compressed air made at the shoreline or close to the shoreline was, to me, much more attractive than having a live electrical line at the bottom of the pond, which would be another technology. So,
I would think so.
Well,
yeah.
You've done so much work on this, and absolutely you should help them in any way you can. Is Sandy Bain involved in this?
Not particularly, but I do ask her questions very
Okay.
frequently.
Yeah.
Jane?
I mean, I have my personal prejudices about the solar B and so on, but we don't have to get into that. They
Yeah.
can choose for themselves.
Yeah, well, I guess my statement is, I'm very pleased with the questions you're giving me here, because I do think that we can come to a point where we can decide, yes or no, what seems to be a good way to go. Now,
I'm troubled by the use of the word "we," but I'll
We.
pass over that
Oh,
for now.
well,
I just had a technical question.
sure.
Would you say it's been done in other towns? Is there some sort of an agreement between the property owners and the town? Because it's going on public land.
They were privately funded. I can ask, there was one in Chatham, so I can consult with Bob Duncanson there.
I suspect that there has to be some sort of authorization from the town, because it's a town-owned pond. And, it's like,
Right.
I can't go and put something in the transfer station because I feel like putting it there.
Right, yeah, there's definitely, there has to be,
Yeah, so it would take more than just
agreements, understanding Conservation Commission approval, there's a process.
Oh,
But,
okay.
but
Everybody
if
does
the
it.
funding comes from private source,
Right.
there's less
Yeah.
town commitment in terms of, so, I know that that's been done in several towns. And some have had successful outcomes, some not so much, but I can definitely look into that. And see what was involved when you get into that partnership with a water body that's owned
Yeah.
not by the property owners, but, because in one case, there was no public access, so I know that there wasn't town support for that reason. So I can look into that.
Jane, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I see myself as an individual in the town, and a member of the water committee is how I'm going forth on this. I'm not, when I speak with other people, I don't say, well, I'm the chair, and the committee wants to do this. I say, I'm Charles Harris, and I want to look into a little more detail. Because we're an old town, it's a little bit tricky making sure we have sort of a clean right-of-way that would serve us, because some of those pieces of land just have come down and through history as accepted for what they are, and no one's ever had to go find out.
I think, Adele's point is that you might have to get an easement from somebody if they're gonna allow an electrical line to go from their
Well,
private
that's the second
property.
point, but you're also gonna need,
Yeah,
the
there's,
town is gonna have to authorize the placement of anything on private property. It's not so simple as, well, they're not paying for it, because the town potentially, and the town's lawyers will obviously look at that, could have liability in the event of anything going wrong, even though they didn't put it there. It's on public property and they've authorized it. So I think there are a few hurdles that would have to be jumped.
Yeah. Well, I thought, Sandy Bain would be useful because she gets along with these folks awfully well. And so there are these questions of trying to find out where to site some of this equipment and where to go. And so she'd be very helpful with that. I think she's worked so much on the ponds and knows these people probably. And it would be nice to end up with a piece of paper where we actually tell these people, well, these are the choices you have. These are our estimates of the cost,
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marcel. And yes, Adele, you're right. I have a conception of needing permissions in the legal necessity of it, but to tell you the truth, I don't have the practical knowledge of that, such that, and I recognize I don't, and I recognize that could be the showstopper. We just,
but we can ask, if you could just forward me, if you have the particulars on the technology, the unit, the actual engineering device that you had in mind, and then I can kind of lay that groundwork to see if there was a similar project done.
Wonderful.
And taking up on Adele's idea of an easement,
No,
that's
no,
tough.
I didn't say
I
Eastman
was
James.
going to
did.
say, why don't we,
Easement is almost like a taking, and a lot of homeowners won't go for that. But they'll go for a contract for you, they'll allow you to run a line. But if you
Yeah.
ask for an easement, you're asking for trouble.
well, I agree, Marshall. I'm going to suggest we move to Jane at this point.
Okay.
It's a topic that's going to get some help in the future, but not anything further today, I was thinking. So, Jane, can you kind of bring us up to date? Janet's here now?
Yep, we have, I'll start with the Board of Health. The Board of Health has been meeting and discussing a draft fertilizer regulation, and we are holding a public hearing on that draft fertilizer regulation on Thursday at 3 o'clock here at Eastham Town Hall. So anyone that has any comments or concerns, questions, et cetera, is invited to attend that meeting. We have the draft regulation online. We also have it available here in hard copy. The purpose of the regulation, really, the intent behind this is homeowner education. And so we will be hopefully working in the future with the Cooperative Extension Service to provide education to not only homeowners, but hopefully businesses, et cetera. So that is Thursday. And it has passed in Brewster. It has passed in Mashpee in different forms, a little bit of a different version. Chatham has it under consideration this week as well. So I'm not sure if there are other towns, but those are the ones that I know of that have this under discussion this month. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
When I was on the Conservation Commission, it was a rule that we honored the Board of Health's rules. In other words, if those came up, then they were honored. Is that going to be the case here?
You know, we like to think that we're in, you know, in the same family, and that we have a consensus on issues. You know, each individual board has its own particular areas of concentration. I'd like to see that, you know, think that they're complementary, not divergent. And so that's the intent, that we're, you know, we have, the Board of Health has reached out to all of the planning board, zoning board, Board of Selectmen, conservation, to let them know that this is under discussion and invite them into the conversation, but, you know, if there's any comments at all. So hopefully we will all be on the same page at the end of the day and supportive and working, you know, to make it easier, really, for the business owners and homeowners, you know, streamline this. So I think the Board of Health did a nice job trying to streamline the model regulation that we were sort of given as a template from the commission. And we've also received assistance from the commission, so that's been helpful. So we'll see where that goes. And I just want to remind you that we did have the donation from one of our citizens who had a group of interested people in supporting educational and environmental project goals. And so as we pass this fertilizer regulation, I know Janet and Adele worked on the brochure in the past, and Roger, not to leave anybody out. So, you know, we might want to start thinking about another brochure. We have about 400 and, oh, she has it with her. So that's good, you know, there's that money. And I think in terms of like ponds, what are we doing and what can we do about Schoolhouse? We are kind of on hold for a particular remedy, but that homeowner education is an important piece of it. So that should be, you know, something that we try to, you know, keep moving forward. And so hopefully this draft regulation will be the backbone for that. And, you know, we can build on that outreach. I think that things like what we did with the Pond Education Day effort, some people missed that. I actually was talking with the chair from the Community Preservation Committee, and he told me he actually missed that meeting and went back and watched it online, and it's available online. Unfortunately, the gentleman from the Division of Marine Fisheries, I believe, that did the invasive species training, the hands-on identification, although that was sort of interactive, so you might lose that on TV or, but I thought he did such a nice job, and that's really another aspect of pond protection is invasive species. So I'd like to get him back and broaden the audience, include, you know, different groups, think of ways to reach out to maybe people that are in kayaking groups or fishing groups or whatnot. You know, we'll use collective, you know, resources here to think of who we can outreach, because invasive species, again, it's another looming problem with our ponds. So
I think it's not only the ponds. I think you have to consider all our water environments with invasive species. And I thought that was a very good presentation.
I think he did a
But
nice job.
it was, to me, because we kayak, we also have a boat. I mean, you to think that you've got to clean your kayak up and you had to have 5 days between wherever you've been in one place and drying it out and all the rest of it for the realization. I mean, more times that you tell people about that, the more times they'll begin to realize this is a problem.
Mhm.
And I mean, you read them all the time, zebra mussels, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, and
whatever
there's a
the
lot-
fish is and the-
There's a
Great
lot of
Lakes.
ways to get that education out
Yep.
there, you know, Boy Scout groups, Girl Scout
Yes.
groups, they're, you know, they have parents, they have, you know, they have people that are with them, and it's, I think it's sort of a win-win situation, so, you know, maybe that can be one of our goals for the spring, and then, you know, keep that education piece moving forward. So that's pretty much it with the fertilizer. In terms of the pond, what's going on with the ponds, I think I sent you all the spreadsheet that shows the fourth quarter sampling results for Great Pond, and it looks great. So, you know, that's been very positive. Liz Moran from Ecologics is in process of writing up the final report on Great Pond. And I'd like you to know that both of those projects are gonna close out as under budget, on time. And I would say, you know, real collectively, both success stories in terms of, you know, the results that we obtained. So that really is a great thing. And so we have a few outstanding invoices related to the sampling that was just done, related to water quality test on drinking water supply that has to be done and such. But I'll give you the update from the CPC on the money that will be returned from the balance for those two projects. So, and the report should be coming from Liz within the month. Other things that have been going on, the landfill investigation continues. The IRA, the last quarterly report was filed. It's on our website, and there's a link to it. It's actually on the DEP website, but if you go to our website, you can find that report. And that is it is dated September 30th, 2014, but it really is for work done through, I believe it's through the end of August. So it's, so that sort of spells out the results of what was tested, what was detected, and it laid out a strategy for where we go from here. And where we went from there is, we're now trying to determine through installing temporary monitoring wells, what is the extent and fate of this contamination plume emanating from the landfill? And that is not an easy thing to do, but that is what we're attempting to do. And in that regard, we put in 6 temporary vertical profiling wells, and we also did an electroconductivity boring to determine the different aquitards. And so we are actually meeting with the consultant on Thursday, and hopefully he'll be able to present to us some type of 3-dimensional model. We'll see. It's very difficult to do. And so that work was done without any problem, however, so we went down with these temporary vertical wells 200 feet. So we basically went to the north midpoint and to the south to try to determine extent and fate. And so I'll let you know how that goes. We're trying to refine the groundwater contour, and this might lead us into further investigation of homes on the northern end of this, actually to the north of the landfill, not even to the northern end of the cap, and doing an investigation basically to determine if some of this contamination is not coming from wastewater, and that the wastewater discharge is recycling and creating this recirculation problem as we see with nitrate nitrogen. It's the same thing, it's just with a different compound. So we'll see where that goes. I should know more by the end of the week. So We're also starting to work together, both the water consultants and the waste, and the landfill consultants, so that everyone is on the same page, because some of the work that's being done for the landfill is survey work, which will be shared with the water consultants as the project in terms of the civil engineering and all that for the infrastructure moves forward, so. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Jane, you used that word aquitard. It's, can you tell me a little bit more about?
They're basically, it's not, it's sort of, not, all one layer. They're just sort of, it's discontiguous layers of sediment. So it would be easy if it was all contiguous. It's not. So there's different layers that form and then they peter out. So you try to, through this process, determine where they begin, where they end, where the productive zone begins, et cetera. So,
Okay,
and it's a lot of the work, same work that's done in terms of the hydrogeology and groundwater modeling. That's the same kind of work that's
Yeah.
done
okay.
as the basis for that.
Because we're getting concentrations that are so low, I think that you need to pay particular attention to the quality control of the sampling. I'm a little startled at seeing that there are hits everywhere. There's an inconsistency there that, to me, indicates that maybe they're not as careful with their sampling as they should be. So the quality control would consist of using equipment that has been rinsed, and that rinse has been tested to make sure it's clean, and then that's used in one well or one home. And then it's discarded, and you use another clean sampler to do the next home. Because if they are not careful with their equipment, they'll start getting hits right and left, and all it will be is just contaminated equipment they're using.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're required to have a licensed site professional, who's a geologist in our case, doing this work, overseeing the site, stamping the reports, it's under his professionalism that the methodology is chosen and vetted with DEP, so DEP has to approve the technology and the testing procedures that we're using. The methods that we're using now, it's analytical method, it's EPA 8270, which probably doesn't mean much to anybody. I've seen too many of these reports lately, but it's what's called CAM compliant, which I can never remember what CAM stands for, but in the worlds of licensed site professionals, that's the process they want to use, because it is the highest rigor of a test to make sure that there's good QA/QC. And so that is a big part of why we're using the lab we're using. We've switched from, right now we're using Alpha Analytical, and that is something that the licensed site professional pays close attention to, is the QA/QC, because the data is only as good as its, its validity and reliability.
Just a sort of a warning flag that
Yeah,
one
so
needs
that's a
to
very
pay
good point.
special attention.
So you're trying to find the boundaries of the plume
Yeah,
still?
and it's difficult.
Has anyone talked about using a radial test pattern and dichotomous search technique?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I could ask that question. If you want to send me an email with exactly what you mean, Roger, I will follow up on and respond back to you.
Okay, just to kind of give you an example, let's say if that's the town and that's the plume, what you do is you start from where you think the center is, and radial means you go out in directions. And, excuse me, dichotomous means basically you're just splitting the space. So you go halfway out in each direction and do a test. And so let's say in this one, it comes out positive. So you know that the boundary of the plume is further out than where you are. And here, so then you do your next test halfway, and then you keep splitting that space in half so you converge. It's the most,
So that's a statistical analysis
it's
type
the most
approach.
most efficient way to
Okay.
find a.
I mean, I'll ask the question, maybe their placement of these wells was based on that. In my opinion, it was kind of based on common sense, because we knew the groundwater direction. There could have been more to it, other than my common sense might
just
comply with
wondering.
that. I can show you where these wells were located. The green ones are the temporary monitor. You can see all the testing that's been done because all the shaded properties, and obviously we get information from the private wells. And you can see the green dots here are where we put in the temporary wells, and then this is where our conductivity boring was. So honestly, when you show me that diagram, it's kind of what we did.
Okay.
But that's how, I don't know.
Because
if there's a
if you want, I can put a diagram together and send it to you.
It's almost exactly what you're showing me as a diagram, however,
All right.
ironically, well, maybe it's not ironic, it's common sense and statistical analysis. So, we certainly have hopes that this will give us definitive information. I wonder. It's just so complicated. We know for a fact we're seeing recirculation. So if it's in the groundwater and you're sucking it up and you're drinking it and discharging it in your wastewater, then it's getting into somebody else's well. We know we're seeing this. We've thought about partnering with Silent Springs and some of the work that they're doing on other markers, you know, such as aspartame, artificial sweeteners, things that we know are so resilient in the environment. Once you discharge things like aspartame, it's like here until, I guess, I don't know, the cockroaches and the aspartame will be the last things left. But it's so complicated. We're not doing a research project here. It's very expensive. There's, it doesn't seem like it's gonna lead us anywhere that is helpful. We know that the DEP is very satisfied with the permanent solution being bringing in clean drinking water to this area downgrading the landfill as the absolute definitive prevention for any public health exposure. So how long, I mean, we still have to do this work. It's part of our requirement under being named the potentially responsible party for the release, but, you know, some of it, if we start adding to the complexity of it, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get anywhere.
When you say temporary wells, do you mean they were abandoned after
They came in with a drill rig that went down 200 feet.
Right.
So they just went in and augered down, and then they took, from their rig, they had sort of a water line, or, I don't know.
So they sampled
sample
as they
out.
went down.
Right, as they
Right.
were going down
Right.
at different
Did
depths.
they complete the well so that you can babysit them?
No,
in
they
the
removed
future?
them, so it was a
Oh, okay.
one-day affair.
All right.
Although it was like an 8-hour, you know, in the various sites that they went. And they did 3 on the landfill and then 3 out, you know, on private property with permission from the owners.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they just removed the well.
Yeah.
Kind of loud, but it doesn't do much, you know, damage or anything like that. So, yeah, send me that question and I'll see if that's how it was done. And I think that's it. Oh, the wastewater. Wastewater, I know that, in terms of what's been going on right now is, the 208 meetings were being attended by Sandy as our primary representative, and you, Charles. I've kind of been asked to come back into the loop a little bit on this and coordinated a meeting with our wastewater consultant and, who is Nate Weeks, the same gentleman who helped on our ponds, and coordinated that with Mike Dominica, who is the engineer working for the town of Orleans. He's sort of a project engineer, working with the Orleans Water Committee. Is that their name, Charles?
What?
Water quality
Water
advisory.
quality.
Advisory panel, yeah.
Okay. And so this is sort of an opportunity on Wednesday at the 2:30 Board of Selectmen's meeting, sort of to get an update from Mike on the direction Orleans, where they are headed, try to coordinate anything that they might need from us at this time, and to engage the selectmen in that conversation. So I know that, you know, there are some issues to resolve, and so we'll see where this heads.
You said Domenica's gonna report tomorrow?
We're both, Mike Dominic is
Oh,
gonna
Mike
come
and
And
Nate,
Nate.
okay.
from Orleans.
Okay.
And I believe maybe another facilitator for their project, Stacy.
Smith.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not sure if she will come out. We've been dealing directly with Mike. And our representative, our wastewater
Nate.
Snake.
Okay.
So, you know, it's just a regrouping, and we'll see where that goes. I think, you know, Charles, you had some suggestions that are very poignant ones regarding Cape Cod National Seashore and engaging them in this conversation. And we've had meetings in the past. I dug out my last folder from a meeting that I attended in, so it was May or June. May 23rd, 2014, where we met with seashore officials, we met with representatives from the Cape Cod Commission, and there was good discussion, and now it's sort of an opportunity, I think, to follow through on that.
It's this week, because Sandy told me it was December 3rd.
Yeah, that's a Wednesday, 2:30 on December
Is it
I-
December
I-
3rd?
3rd, yeah.
Am I losing weeks?
Well, she sent me, I asked her a question on something I didn't understand, and so she sent me
You know,
back.
I think you're right. I
Well,
think you're right. I think
Well,
it
I
is
said, and
December.
she says, went away.
Yeah, I think that we originally planned that and he couldn't come.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
December
I'm
3rd.
pretty sure. I
You're
got it.
right. Oh, that's good. That frees me up tomorrow afternoon.
Well, I
Thank
was
you
just
very
thinking-
much.
I was just thinking, I don't
I
want to come
appreciate
tomorrow
that.
afternoon.
I appreciate that. That's great.
Well, it wasn't on my calendar.
Oh,
so-
good. I have it in two places. You're right. Yeah,
Oh,
December
I see,
3rd.
all right.
Well, so does that mean we've come to the end of your comments?
I think so. I think
Okay.
that's all I
What-
have to say.
what I
Unless
was
you have
gonna
anything
What I
for-
was going to suggest is I could just sort of start in on the 208 line on the agenda. Under wastewater management, we've got Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel, Bain Report. Sandy Bain has written this 6-page report, and it's the first kind of text document going to the Board of Selectmen, and she delivered it on the 5th of November. And I was thinking that it might be a good thing for us to just take 10 minutes or so and kind of slowly walk our eyes through it so we have an idea of some of the topics that are being brought up. I see the 208 planning effort as being the top priority on the Cape at this moment, and actually with the exception that the work being done down in Orleans now, in terms of its impact on Eastham, is very important. It means that the town meeting decisions have to be made in the next year that are generational type meetings. So let me just kind of back up a little bit. As far as I understand it, the Board of Selectmen in Orleans at the previous town meeting got $500,000 to pay for the investigation work that they saw Orleans needing to do to deal with all its wastewater situations. And what they did is they hired a private engineering consulting firm by the name of Stantec. And they also hired as perhaps being their point of contact for the town of Orleans to the Stantec work, Mike Dominica and Stacy Smith. Now, those two folks have been deeply involved in the 208 planning. They essentially had contracts as individuals back with the Cape Cod Commission. So they were in fact the leaders of the discussions that we were doing up on the 208 planning. So it's very good that they were able to reach out to those two people, because they have been key in moderating and leading the discussions in the meeting. What we've been doing is meeting down here in the Orleans Town Hall, and the Orleans Board of Selectmen, the 5 of them, sit there. The chair chairs the entire meeting, but at the table, we have Sandy as a representative of the town, and we have, not with steady attendance, but we have Sue Levin, who is the town planner for Brewster, there. And we have the leaders designated by all of the various environmental players in town for Orleans. So Orleans Pond Coalition, the Orleans Marine and Freshwater Task Force, all that kind of business. So there's about 18 or so at the table. And then in the rest of the room, there's another good 20 or so. And the idea is the discussion is supposed to be going on from the table, with every once in a while if somebody from the back row where I sit, but I'm not sort of essentially granted speaking a position, listen and just track on what's going on. It is, let's see, and basically what they're doing is they're trying to come up with a plan that the Board of Selectmen of Orleans can present at May town meeting to the rest of Orleans to get a decision on what to do to deal with the wastewater issues in Orleans. And I think I told you before is that they're sort of taking two approaches. One, they're solving the problem on paper, strictly going by traditional technology. And by that I mean clustered septic sewage, satellite sewage, or in fact the full central plant. And at the other end, they're essentially trying to solve the water quality issues by using all of the sort of less intensive structural technologies that are there. And there's, well, one of them I would pop out with floating constructed wetlands, you know, and you'd say, well, in any of these, what they call it, non-traditional technologies, have a sort of a cost-benefit factor. And that, yes, they can, for a certain amount of money, take a certain amount of nitrate out of the water in particular situations. But what makes them sort of top out in their efficiency is they only can do so much. And that's why that tips you towards a big system, because if you do it a big system, then there is that economy of scale that you start picking up that starts making it look more attractive. Well, let's see, an important thing for Eastham is that we do have that Stearns and Wheeler report from January 09 that did a wastewater survey for the whole town to try and get an idea of what our situation was. I sat down over the past week and reread that because in this discussion that Sandy did with the Board of Selectmen, Martin McDonald indicated that he had gone back and read the plan. He felt that the data was all relevant. It hadn't changed. And basically, what that Stearns and Wheeler plan did is they essentially took the existing MEP numbers and the number that they thought would be coming out on MEP for Nauset Marsh, because it hadn't come out yet, and they said, okay, how would you deal with this? And they had a pretty healthy discussion in there of the different technologies that I was saying, clusters, all that kind of stuff. So they didn't come up with a solution, but it kind of laid out the existing condition very well. Now, it's important that we have that, for one thing, because the Orleans folks are looking to say, okay, Orleans, how are you going to help, say to, okay, Eastham, how are you going to help in respect to Nauset Marsh? We own one shore, you own the other side of Town Cove. You also have requirements that are coming out for Salt Pond that we know are going to be there for nitrate removal. Basically, it's good news from Eastham's standpoint to tell them that we did that study in '09, and we do have the information, and it is at a level that can match the discussions that are going on now on the other technologies. Let's see, yeah. I'm on page 2, and I'm looking down, and now, a big thing that's in our future that I think we really have to put on the agenda from now on out is this concept of a waste management agency. And basically, the situation is that the state will identify water pollution abatement districts if we don't act between now and the 20th of, or the 30th of June in 15 to set up our own waste management agencies for the various wetlands that are both all within the town boundary and also go across the town boundaries. And the idea is that we really don't want to go down having the state impose a water pollution abatement district on it, because that's all top-down direction. Other people decide what fix is going to be made. Whereas with the Water Management Agency, it holds the permit for that watershed, and it is responsible for lowering the level of pollution.
The article I circulated earlier today has some relevance to all this. The proposed settlement in the okay. I sent out an email earlier this morning with an article from the Cape Cod Times reporting on the proposed settlement signed by the EPA and CLF yesterday on their lawsuits. Okay. And basically, to cut to the bottom line, CLF just pretty much gets out of the settlement what it wants. And I think there's possibly some motivation in all of this when apparently the court observed at some hearing that it thought that the current action on the 208 plan was basically a reaction to or result of this litigation. So I think common sense would have to indicate that that's what got people to move. The settlement has to be approved by the court. What it now provides is that by September 15th of 2015, which is less than a year from now, EPA must have approved this 208 plan that's circulated. So that means it will have to go through all the local approvals and the state approval and get to EPA in time for a September 2015 approval. It also, the language of the articles are clear and you can't tell until you see the settlement, but CLF did raise this management agency issue, and apparently it is required by Section 208, a waste management authority. And they are pressing that the plan identify the waste management authorities. And as the article points out, Newswiki is saying that he thinks the towns, et cetera, can do this, can be the authorities, you know, see what the DEP and EPA approves. But that the tricky part is the common watersheds, because there you will have to have one waste management authority for the watershed. So it can't be Eastham will do its bit and Orleans will do its bit. There has to be one authority, which means the towns are gonna have to get together and agree to set up an authority and proceed on that basis. And I would say, based on the limited experience I have had in watching how Eastham and Orleans negotiate, that there is some reason for this stuff to move quickly. I mean, I remember all the drawn-out stuff on the municipal water plant, and apparently there still is some not total agreement on whether there will be an interconnection with Orleans or not. So I suggest that it could take some time to come to a point where there is agreement on some sort of common authority on the shared watersheds. And I think, I mean, it looks to me like it has to be done, or the EPA is not going to be able to approve the plan. And then CLF is free to start up all over again.
Adele, thank you. It helps me a lot, understanding it.
Thank you. I sent
Charles?
her an email and said she
I
had to
wanted to
explain
mention
it to me.
something. As I read through this, I understand that the percentage attributable to each town is based on the number of homes in the watershed. But I think you need to remember that what you're negotiating is the nitrate, not the number of homes. So that's really important, because you're not gonna go into a watershed, for example, and sewer 80% of the homes and then leave the other 20%. Whatever watershed you walk into and you decide to sewer, that's what's gonna be sewered. And so what you need to negotiate is offsets, so that you come out in a fair arrangement with Orleans. I mean, Orleans is the only town we're dealing with. So that's my only comment there.
Yep. Marcel, that's very perceptive. The group, just at their last meeting last week, came to that. And I, let's see if I can kind of say it to you concisely. Okay, in the MEP, what we have now is percentages, and as far as I understand it, the Cape Cod Commission treats the percentages in kilograms. So many kilograms that must be removed, if you want to say it in a year's time or a month's time or something like that, but kilograms removed. All right, now the other way of counting it is sewer services. And there was discussion at that table there as to what are we talking about for one thing, and what was perhaps the better way to do it. All right, and the resolution at the table was, they said that the Cape Cod Commission folks would calculate it both ways. They would count houses for sewer service as a way of knowing the existing condition, and they would also talk about kilograms that needed to be removed based on the level of pollution that they knew to be out there in the water. That's, in a way, that may have been somewhat of our problem earlier, is that our apples and oranges didn't match in terms of the way competent people sort of saw the situation. And yes, it makes sense. I mean, Orleans did a comprehensive water management plan starting from what they tell me, about 10 years ago. But the counting in that was all sewered houses type of thing, you see. And whereas the 208 plan is now coming to us and saying kilograms per year type of deal. Okay, let's see. I guess I'm on page 3, and we get credit for preventive measures. That's why the fertilizer action is important. There is that note in there that at the meeting, Brian Dudley emphatically said that whether there was a fertilizer reduction bylaws and regulations in place was going to really impact quite a bit on the reclassification of Rock Harbor. That is an issue that's out there waiting. So we really do have a need, I think, for this committee and also for the Orleans folks to educate the public as much as we can on the investigation that's going on and the likely nature of a solution that will come to it, and the hopes that they will have that all documented really by about February, such that they can then explain it to people between February and May, and with the hopes of getting them to vote for it. Where we come in on that is, if you look down the bottom of page 3, is that the estimates that the engineers in Stantec are working with is that we would have to sewer 254 lots in Eastham in order to meet what we see as the level of nitrate getting off the Eastham land and getting out there into Town Cove. Now, I think the idea here is that if you do other technologies, you could bring down the number of houses, but you can't make it completely go away. And to me, the idea here is that they're saying, okay, well, these houses could go to a central sewer, or they could go to a satellite, or they could go to a cluster. That's what I'm gathering from reading that Stearns and Wheeler's report. I don't have a paper copy in front of me. Sandy was able to get this number, I think, because she was a little closer to the speaker. But the idea is, as far as I can see it, if Orleans votes for doing any sewerage at all, particularly to a central plant, then that immediately puts the question to Orleans or Eastham: what are you going to do? Are you going to be there asking for a part of that capacity or not? Yes, Jane.
Just to kind of bring us back to what we've been doing with Stearns and Wheeler over the years, and this does date back many, many years now. The first thing we did was a plan evaluation report for the entire town. It's not a complete, comprehensive wastewater management plan. That cost probably $500,000, but the work we did do was essential in looking at our, what I call water needs, not just wastewater needs, the water needs of the entire town. And in that report, what we did was evaluated all the needs, which included water supply. Our wastewater management plan identified 2 areas of need: public health and environmental needs. In the public health needs, the first priority was to supply clean drinking water to the town. That was the highest, #1 priority in our wastewater management plan. Along the environmental sides, our needs are divided into the need to sewer in certain areas where we have impacted estuaries, and also we identified the needs to our ponds. So I don't want to pat ourselves on the back and walk away from responsibility, because clearly we have a lot ahead of us, but we have certainly moved forward on the water supply side, and that's taken us a considerable amount of effort, but that is underway, and it's really going ahead in a very good way. The ponds have been another success. So this is, we need to stay on track with wastewater. When we met with Orleans several years ago, what we, through the work that was done by GHD, and we've done a complete build-out analysis, which is what you're saying, how much wastewater impact do you generate per lot? We've done that. It probably has to all be fine-tuned and updated to a certain degree, but we did it based on build-out, not on current use at the time the report was done, based on zoning at that time and so forth. However, we did approach Orleans Selectmen because at that time we were involved in joint investigations, looking at economies of scale. How might we solve this problem? And we looked at, yes, Eastham could build its own, well, we looked at the feasibility of building our own wastewater treatment plant and certainly identified that the cost would be far less if we participated in a regional approach and brought both all our waste to their wastewater plant at Tri-Town. That was before Orleans was informed that they may not be allowed to do that, discharge all of that waste at Tri-Town. So back then, we actually met with them on many occasions, telling them that yes, we did want to cooperatively work with them. Yes, we wanted to reserve space in their wastewater treatment facility, and sewering around Town Cove seemed like the absolute most effective, cost-effective way to do that. So it seems like we now just have to go back, and since maybe Tri-Town, I don't think that's completely off the table, but we might have to revisit and refine some of the evaluations we did, because we never looked at delivering waste from a regional area, bringing it to a wastewater treatment plant, and then bringing it back to our community for discharge. That we never looked at, because my understanding about cost and engineering technology is the distance is that you bring waste to and from is what drives up the cost. So it might be possible to do that, but the cost might be astronomical. So I guess we're gonna, so now we're just back at it. If I don't know if Tri-Town's completely off the table. I don't know what size facility now that they're downgrading to. But I think, they needed to get legs underneath their plan. We've never really wavered from what our primary focus was, and that's drinking water. And now we need to get back into the discussion with you, as clearly Adele has, highlighted that now that the time is here. And so now we have an objective, and I think we need to be all on the same page. Certainly, the work with the Cape Cod National Seashores of our primary concern, not so much concern of Orleans, but that's high priority too. I mean, that is an impacted water body that's ours to deal with. So I think it's great that there's that much, cohesiveness there, and I think this is an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity to move this forward, so that's good. And I think that we can build on what we've invested in with Stearns and Wheeler, that's now GHD. I think they've done a great job in laying, just a little bit of a background for us, and we'll just build from here and see where we go. We certainly have a watershed that is impaired, and Orleans can't solve this problem by themselves. They can't. We add to that problem. So if we really practically want to solve this problem, we need the two parties to contribute, or
Well, you really don't have a choice. I mean,
It's-
basically, the
yeah, and now we-
208 process is
Right,
going to
and-
require
right,
you
and now
to come
legally, we
up
don't have a choice. So
for
that
each shared
makes it easy.
watershed. And I don't know, I'm not certain where the watershed on the northern end with Wellfleet fits in. Isn't there a shared water fleet up there?
You're right, however.
Everything is, we're focusing on Orleans because they have a process, but basically there's another shared watershed.
Yes, and,
It's on the bay, you mean?
Yes.
yeah,
That thing up there in the
Hatches
northwest,
Creek. Hatches
Hatches
Creek.
Creek in that area.
the nitrate problems of Wellfleet Harbor are significantly lower.
No, I'm not talking about what the solution is. I'm saying in terms of the management structure, which is what this is aiming at. They are insisting there be a management structure for
And you
each
have to
shared
consider it.
watershed. Because I think this is their way, in a way, I don't
So-
blame them,
so
of
the thing-
forcing the towns to finally get together and cooperate to do something to solve these issues.
Yes, yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, there would be essentially, in some way, there'd be a water management agency that Eastham and Orfleet meet and talk about, because we've got land that drains basically into that, from that watershed.
I have a sense that you're still talking about meet as if the towns are meeting. What they are talking about is there would, just like Orleans could have for whatever is totally within Orleans, a management agency for that body of water. This would be a management agency for a body of water. Both towns would be represented on it, but they would be acting through this management agency. Dare I use the dirty word authority? Because if you think of authority, but instead of being a big thing that covers, but just a small authority that will cover a watershed, that would be it. It would be responsible for the management of that watershed, and the involved towns, I would imagine, would have representatives within that authority, and that's how things would be hashed out, but it wouldn't be going back and forth. That's my
It's
understanding anyway.
not
Yeah,
unlike
yeah.
what we've done with Tri-Town. I mean, it was the same thing.
Yeah, except there, Orleans always owned Tri-Town, and
land.
we had to go and, say, can we or can we
We
not?
had a
Yeah.
representative on that.
Yeah, but it was, I don't believe we had a say as whether or not Tri-Town was gonna be closed, so it's not quite the same. I mean, there's not a,
Yeah,
Orleans manages Tri-Town, and we participate. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, except it is the concept of there is an agency that is managing something, but this agency consists of representatives from more than one town. But that is, the agency does it. It's not every time there's an issue, the two towns come together and meet and talk about it. The agency sorts it out and works through it.
yes, the way Adele just said it is the way I understand it. I perhaps am not articulate enough to
Okay.
say it well, but no, that's it. I provide you with a map that, if you look back through there, isn't there a map?
Back of something.
Yeah, okay, it's actually the back of Sandy's report. This is a copy that she took from the discussions down in Orleans and showed to the Board of Selectmen. And you see, that's where you see that kilograms per year that I was making reference to. And so that gives you a piece of paper that it just kind of shows the counting two different ways. Down below, that's where you get that 254 homes when you just kind of take the equivalent. And if you look at the map and you look at Town Cove there, and at the lower map, you kind of see that watershed on the west side of Town Cove that has a point at the top of it. Basically, to me, they're talking about that 254 would be anything in Eastham that fits in that watershed, just to give you a little bit more of a definition on that. Okay, well, let me see. I want to make sure we got time to talk about a couple other things. I think Sandy has raised the issue. She said, you're talking saltwater here, but we also have a problem of nitrate getting into our freshwater ponds. And And a way of dealing with that is that if in the sewered homes that we would have to have, say down in Orleans, if they are above the pond in a particular watershed, pulling the nitrate into the centralized sewer system solves the problem for that particular pond. Otherwise, it would slowly move down gradient into the pond and cause pollution. Like I said.
However, the ponds are more affected by phosphorus, and a lot of the phosphorus is already bound in the soil. So unless you actually remove the soil, that phosphorus eventually will be released from the soil particles and moving on its way to the ponds. So yes, from anything this day forward after you sewer, there's no more, but there's residual in the environment that will affect the pond for many years to come. It's the same discussion we had related to why not just sewer and not supply fresh water, clean fresh water as a solution to the public health problem, because you will experience the exposure of what's already been released in the environment for decades to come. So even though you sewer around a pond, unless you've bound up the phosphorus in the mineral, whatever's making the plant life bloom in there, you're gonna see an impaired pond for
Yeah, Jane,
forever.
Sandy's notes cover that.
Okay.
She says that though they're talking about preventing input, sedimental phosphorus control has not been considered. So it's just exactly the
Right.
problem.
And actually,
but-
I'm the representative on the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative, and I actually made that point to the Orleans representative, that we were very happy to hear that now they are going to develop, in theory at least, pond restoration approaches.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no-
Sandy's been really behind that, so,
Yeah, no,
you know,
no,
to her credit.
Yeah, but that's a good point, Jane. Phosphorus is part of the science, but at the table down there, the talk is strictly bioreactive nitrogen, in other words, nitrate. But I was, there are a few places in Orleans where, in fact, the density of houses suggest you should consider centralized sewer. But they're few, and as far as I know, in the watersheds that we're talking about here, that doesn't fit us. We've got three watersheds. We've got the Rock Harbor situation, and that's kind of on hold because they're saying, let's just hold it because we have the reclassification issue floating, and the other areas are going to be big when a solution is found anyways. And of course, we have a little bit of drainage up into Wellfleet Harbor, but thank goodness that's pretty small at that point, so we aren't thinking about it. Let me see, the Rock Harbor watershed. It's important to know that there are folks in Brewster that are concerned about how much discharged water would be coming from any kind of a wastewater treatment plant that would be going down into Namsakett Marsh. And I think I've told you before, but if I haven't, they have had one high-level science meeting to talk to all of those folks that have that concern and to decide how to investigate the existing condition. In other words, see if the thinking was correct when they established Tri-Town and allowed them to do on-site discharge from seepage into the ground. So that's going on at the same time. Okay, and Sandy go ahead.
But Sandy notes that there's a new study underway now
Yes,
to
yes,
verify whether or not there is any discharge into Namscachet.
yes, they're doing that, and,
It stays underneath.
Yeah, yeah. No, but the study is to determine whether or not, in fact, it is going even underneath.
And do you know how long that they're gonna plan to take to do that study?
She doesn't say. She just
Okay.
said they had a high certainty that there isn't any impact, but they still felt it's enough uncertainty for another study.
Do you know if Stan Tech is doing that?
Again, she doesn't say.
I don't know. Let's see, but there is another little technical point in there. Since the wastewater treatment plants don't remove all of the nitrate, you end up with a discussion about you have to account for the nitrate that's going back into that watershed that came out of the watershed, got treated in the plant, and it's going back in again. And apparently in Massachusetts law, the preference is to always discharge any treated water back into its own watershed. And if you don't, you've got to actually count the nitrate in the discharged effluent against what you can have in the watershed in which you let it go. And the way they talk about it is that, well, we might have to sewer X amount of houses, but we've got to add to the X that nitrate that's coming back in the flow. So you actually bump up, what, I don't know, so many houses in that. I just repeat that because it's part of the reasoning that goes on, and I'm sure there'll be, people will be needing to catch that later on. Okay, so Sandy's saying, get GHD involved, and the Board of Selectmen are responding, doing that on the 3rd of December. She said, make sure, send a letter telling them that we have freshwater pond concerns. And the consultant needs to kind of keep that in the back of the mind. Let's see, and there's this item here of, well, let's see. The Cape Cod Commission apparently is able to help towns with their wastewater planning. And in other words, they would actually pay for some staff time for both Stacy Smith and Mike Domenica to actually come to Eastham and talk to the appropriate officials, and that actually, it's Cape Cod Commission, part of that large $3 million, $0.4 has that, a little bit of money to do that. And as I say, and the idea is that both Mike and Stacy, since they've led all of these other discussions all around the Cape, they might have particular expertise in being able to point us to things that they think might fit here in a good way, that just because they have that sensing of how to read the landscape. And okay, and as I point out, we have that need to keep the Eastham voters fully informed on this. I don't know of a particular thing that they would be voting money for in June at this point, but it seems to be, if nothing else, there's the engineering work studies and all that kind of support that would be needed, and normally that ends up in the budget that's being presented. And obviously, to me, there's a lot of engineering, design, and evaluation that goes on. And the last line down there that I'll touch on is that this Mike Giggy, who I understand is a retired engineer, perhaps still with Wright Pierce, he came up with the information that a 1% decline in water quality is a 7% lower in home values. And that seems fairly extreme, but even if it's only half or a quarter true, that goes to the logic in which places like the abutters up there at Minister Schoolhouse Pond would be willing to spend money because they're protecting the real estate value of their home. Okay? All right, well, I think that's about as far as I've gotten on the 208. Let me just check my list, because we have other things that I want to make sure we talk about. Let's see, in terms of the, maybe going back a little bit, the municipal water planning, I note that the maps are up on the town website now. I don't know if, how long they've been sitting there. Their dates are October, so they've just, I think, just gone up. So that's good news, because that gives the citizens a place to go to see the generalized maps that we have on the on the municipal water planning.
And this report's also online. This is the water management permit.
Ah, okay.
That's also on that same webpage.
All right. The, and I don't know, I guess I would say is that, I don't know whether you read in the paper there on the, I guess the 31st of October, the Cape Codder had a column in there about the Eastham and the an Orleans Selectmen meeting and talking about a connection. And I guess there was some discussion that it really wasn't any advantage, as far as they could see, to Orleans. And I would say, no, that's not exactly right. And that article also pointed out that Orleans already has an existing interconnection with Brewster. Basically, as you probably know, it will cost Eastham only 20% of the expense of producing a gallon of water that it now costs Orleans, and that was the reason why we didn't buy water from them. And it's also the fact that we are drawing from an aquifer, portion of an aquifer that just has much cleaner water in it. It's material that came off the glacier as opposed to material that got pushed in front of the glacier, and it's just different. It's different minerals. Let's see,
At last night's selectmen's meeting, there was a discussion, brief discussion of the fact, during the municipal water report, that apparently Orleans Board of Selectmen sent a letter to our selectmen about, I guess, 10 days ago or so, based on what they said, raising a question about the interconnection, and Mark White pointed out that under the agreement by which Orleans now provides water to certain homes in southeast Ham, that agreement provides for Eastham taking over those homes if and when it has a municipal water system, which it will now have. And that basically, in order to do that, to accomplish that transfer from Orleans pipes to Eastham pipes, they'll have to put in valves, which he described as roughly being similar to what an interconnector would be. So this is why I say I think it's going to take some time to bring Orleans along to the point of being willing to cooperate on the shared watersheds. Cooperation doesn't seem to be their strong suit. There was a couple of other things, unless you had something else about they made some decisions. I don't know if you know about the options. Okay. The whole sort of plan is a little different from what we were first told in 2009 in terms of the pipes. Originally going to run a pipe up both sides of Route 6. Well, it's now only one side, and they're probably going to have to go large measure into the sidewalks because of the gas and electric lines that are already there in the road. They can't get into the road. So for that and other reasons, the engineers have been looking at ways to get the pipes off Route 6 to the extent possible. And they identified a number of places in which by doing so, they'd not only be getting off Route 6, but they also would be bringing in more homes. And I'm trying to, I wrote this all down last night, now I can't find my notes. For example, and they'd offered a number of, I got it. They'd offered a number of options, or set out a number of options at a meeting, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And last night, they made their recommendations on the options. One is that on the northern end, instead of going what was originally sort of looked like looping up a little bit towards Wellfleet and coming back, they're recommending going along something called Jackson and Wepley. Doesn't mean anything to me. And they pick up a number of homes there. They're also recommending that when they get to Old County Road, which is the other side of Brackett, on the west side of 6, that they would run along Old County and Massasoit and then back out to 6. And that obviously picks up a number of homes that wouldn't otherwise be covered.
That's good. Massasoit has really poor water quality in general.
Well, they can benefit by this then if the Board of
That's good.
Selectmen, these are recommendations to the selectmen, and they will have to decide. Similarly, they're recommending that at where Great Pond meets 6, that they would go in and run down Great Pond to Kingsbury Beach Road. So that picks up those houses. And they're also recommending a bypass Governor Prince on the east side of the road. That little piece of Governor Prince that's on the east side of 6, that sort of almost goes around, that they do a bypass there instead of staying on 6.
So how do they get water supply on both sides of Route 6 then?
I guess they do it by
Underneath and just
underneath or
tunneling
something
under
like
the road?
that. It's, and of course, when you think about it, you sort of visualize Route 6, most of it is on the other side. Most of it is, the development on Route 6 is on the east side of the road. For example, right outside of Kingsbury Beach, you have the 2 cemeteries. I don't think they're gonna run road into that. I doubt it anyway. But there isn't a lot. I just sort of, as you sort of run your mind, sort of think of driving up 6, towards Wellfleet, and what's on your left-hand side. Not a lot. So, obviously, I think, this would pick up in a good number of additional houses, which would be good.
Yep, good, thank you. Okay, well, I'm kind of keeping my eye on the clock and making sure we got all the things. Okay, let's talk about the pond protect.
I just have one other thing, Charles, which I think might be of interest in terms of something that people might be approached about. Apparently, some people have asked the question of, especially people who are near the well fields, would their water level be reduced by the drawdown in the well fields? And they've done a study and put out some facts last night. I don't know if it's even a study, it's just known engineering facts, that if you're 1,000 feet away, which is pretty close, I mean, most places are further away, there might be a 1-foot drop in the level because of the drawdown at the well fields. But they said, and I didn't know this, that on private wells, the pump is typically 10 feet or more below the water table. And that the season... Pardon?
Mine's 30.
Yours is 30, okay. And that the seasonal variation is 2.5 feet to 3 feet, so there's already a variation, as like this summer, where we sort of have semi-drought circumstances. So that seems to eliminate that problem. And an interesting question that's pending is some private landowners have asked whether or not if all of the, said landowners on private roads, if all of the people on the road banded together and they were close to Route 6 or close to another area that was about to get water, but they weren't included in the plan at that point, could they, if they paid, bring the pipes into their road, which I thought is an interesting development in terms of people's interest in getting water.
Yeah, what was it? The paper was indicating that Sheila had responded to that at a previous meeting. Did you recall exactly what?
I don't, I didn't, I haven't been able to make all the meetings, I've been away for some of them, so
I think,
I just knew the question was raised.
I think what she said, and it was an article in one of the papers, was that for town money to be spent to do that, it would have to go through a town meeting. You know, it's, you know, that sort of as a starting statement. I suppose you might get to the point where you might say, oh, for gosh sakes, it's such a little amount of money. Let's figure out something that we could do. But as a general answer, she was saying, no, it's got to go through a town meeting, you know, because of budgeting and spending rules on that. All right, let's Roger, if we could talk about the frozen version of the pond protection plan.
Sure.
I think you have something to tell us in that area.
Okay, let's see. Have to shrink it down a little bit here so we can see it. Okay, what's going on here? There we go. Okay, what I'm recommending, I'll go to section 5 that has the schedule.
I've lost track. You've presented this to the Board of Selectmen yet?
No, that's the point I'm gonna make.
Oh, okay.
We haven't managed to get on their schedule, so what I'm recommending, let me show. Yeah, it's, oh, here it is. Okay. What I'm recommending is, we had this step, which was coordinate the final draft with Board of Health, Conservation Commission, and then this step said, go to the Board of Selectmen and, you know, get approval. So we haven't gotten any comments from any of those. So what I'm recommending is we just basically say, because we've been to them multiple times each, and, you know, Board of Selectmen just basically said, you know, nice job, keep it up. And so what I'm recommending is, since we didn't get any comments back, we use the NATO rules. Like in NATO, you have 26, 28 nations. You're never going to get them to all say, yes, I agree. So they have the silence procedure. And if a country does not agree, it breaks silence. And if they don't break silence, then by a certain date, then it's approved. So they have not broken silence, so I'm recommending that we just basically approve it.
Is that what, I'm trying to figure out what date we sent it to the Board of Selectmen. Was that
Yeah, it
September
was-
11th?
Yeah, it was September 11th. So I put today's date in here.
Okay. That's when you did the presentation, September 11th?
No, so we sent it to them
Oh, okay.
and requested presenting to them. And
Did you ask, did we specifically ask them for comments then? Or did
That's
we
the
just
thought. You
ask for
could
time
send
on
them
their
the
schedule?
written report and
yeah, and basically tell them if, that it's been approved, we went through our process, and we are going to be revising it as we move forward.
Yeah.
So they have plenty, everybody has opportunity if they see something or something changes in the town. So what I recommend is we basically declare a victory, and again, everybody's had multiple chances, and we've been through all the comments and everything. And there's ample opportunity to change it. So does everybody agree, declare victory, no longer a
Yeah,
draft?
I guess what Jane was just saying is that we would send something to the board
Saying
telling
this
them
is,
that.
yeah, saying this is
What was-
version 1
this
as,
is- was it-
as
We're
approved.
finalizing version 1, and so they know, okay.
Okay, yeah, I can.
Probably
I
best
can
to do that before we go and ask that it be put on the town website,
All right, okay. Yeah, but basically say if,
because it
yeah,
probably has to be.
yeah, if you
somebody
have
has
no
to say
objection, we'll
yes to put it on
proceed
the
with putting it
website.
on the website. Okay?
Everybody else okay with that? I am.
Okay, then when, we can talk about next time, once we have version 1, then do we want to keep carrying this long schedule that we went through? Or when we go to the next, like, sub-release, which would probably be something like version 1.0.1, we could replace this with like a change status.
Yeah, I think
And
it's,
something like that, instead of, but we want to have one official version that shows the completed schedule for where we got to approval. But then after, you know, a lot of documents will have a change history, and we could put in a change history.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. And so, I
Well,
don't
less
think we have time to
verbiage, the better.
go through all the appendices, but at some point, we should go back through Appendix C. And we also, I haven't done anything with them, but we did receive a few comments from Sandy. So maybe next meeting, we can do that, and then review the status of all the actions in Appendix C.
Have we, were the comments Sandy sent out? I don't remember, I know I missed some stuff, so I don't
There
know.
w- It was during the summertime,
She commented on it? Okay.
maybe it was, yeah, I'm sure I have it in the, well, I do have them, so if, I
Why
can
don't
check
you
their
send them out
distribution.
again if we're gonna talk about them next time?
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Okay,
So,
It's a plan?
It's not off Route 6, it's off Route 6 roadway. I mean, it'll be on Route 6, but not in the road bed.
these are
Yeah,
my,
okay.
these are my
Oh,
notes.
those are your notes,
These-
okay.
Right, just, so, yeah,
there you go.
these, not the minutes.
All right. We have another one item that's related to the pond protection plan. Okay. When Sandy Bain went to the Conservation Commission, and I believe she was talking to them about the fertilizer regulation. They said to her, where is the Herring Pond plan? Basically, the chair said that in the granting of the permission to go forward with the Herring Pond alum treatment, there was an understanding that this committee was going to make a Herring Pond plan.
The key word, though, because I'm not certain what you're going to propose is going to fly, they were asking for a management plan. Those were the words that were used,
Oh, okay.
which is a little bit more than a plan.
Well, okay, yeah, well, I wrote down here preservation plan. My thoughts are that the pond protection plan is the management plan. It,
The Conservation Commission was asking?
Because we applied for the funds, and we
Management
were
plan.
accepting responsibility as, it's the same as if anybody else went in and asked the CPA, I guess, to give you money, and then the Conservation Commission.
They had conditions attached to the permit.
Yeah.
So the management plan
Did they say what they
is to
wanted?
get the Conservation Commission to enforce that no fertilizer be used in the buffer zone. And if they do that, then that's the end of the management plan.
well,
Did they say what they wanted in the management plan?
No,
Okay,
but
so
that's
what-
their usual
Then it's-
thing. They require
What-
people to submit a management
Yeah.
plan, and then you have to
what I,
figure out what's going to keep them happy.
well, what I'm proposing is that
You tell them
Roger
this
and
is
I go talk to
it.
the.
They've seen it.
Roger and I go talk to the Conscom and basically say we would very much like the frozen copy of the plan to be the management plan. Do you have any problems with that? And if they do, well, we'll just work from there.
And mention that they've seen it at least 2 times.
Yes.
In draft form.
All right, so,
And we addressed their comments already.
Yeah, that's an overall plan. When you look at what we have on Herring Pond, we have 2 very broad statements with no indication of anybody doing anything, or start dates or end dates. Take actions for aquatic plant controls, take actions to improve and maintain shoreline vegetative buffers of 100 feet. And there's no sort of, who's, you know, we identified Jane as having the lead on monitoring the results of alum treatment. We could do that one.
Well, we
had-
did
we
have
had
an
some-
aquatic
a thing,
invasive
an actual
species training.
thing.
We did have that.
Yeah,
We
but these
certainly
other two were
like to
just
do it
like
again, so.
Yeah, could add that in.
Well, and we could also,
mom and apple pie.
we could also at the same time give them a copy of the report that Jane has just given us, saying that the final reports for the 2 ponds are coming.
Well, Herring Pond is done. Great Pond is coming.
Right, okay, so that could be part of it.
Herring Pond is already online. Correction, there was an earlier version online, we needed to replace it with the final.
Yeah.
But we can certainly, we've been meaning to do that. And then Great Pond is coming, and we're gonna have the fertilizer regulation passed, hopefully. So there's another aspect of
Management plan.
yeah, a management plan.
I
We
have no
this.
idea
I
what
mean,
they
I
want.
think this is it.
I was sitting there, someone presented this to me as a
Anything that
management
needs to be
plan.
done in the future to
I'd say,
maintain the good
Oh.
Well, it's like
Actually,
the
I'm
208 thing, somebody mentioned that
Yeah, I actually.
it didn't seem like much of a plan, but it was good enough for the lawyers to get by, so, same thing with us.
Because if it does, then that satisfies.
Yeah,
That's a lot
I
of it.
actually, you know, as I mentioned, I had a little bit of money left over, actually quite a bit of money from Great Pond, but there's a small amount from Herring Pond. And before I returned it to the CPA committee, I wanted to make sure all of our invoices and all of our obligations and recommendations had been covered. So that, I asked that question specifically of Nate and Liz, is there additional recommendation for testing that you would put into the report? Because if that's the case, I would encumber money against those costs, but we can't go forever, so we will have to return that money, and so I did put that out there, and they are going to get back to me. So, what Liz said was, Nate's comment was, I discussed the possibility of additional sampling for the 2 ponds beyond the PALS sampling parameters with Liz, and she indicated that the 4th quarter sampling after destratification can provide an informative trend as time goes on. She will probably identify that additional sampling in her report at a reasonable frequency. So that's what I thought.
That sounds good.
That sounds good, yeah.
All we need is words.
See, this is why I used to be very successful suing the government, because they would just lay out a lot of words, and they were supposed to be doing something.
Yeah,
But they do stuff.
Well,
professionally, we call that the perception of substance.
No, but
Well,
he
okay,
actually just came here and sampled. I
No,
actually
no,
get
I know, but I
results
mean,
from
in
him.
terms of, you know, the,
Oh,
I mean, you know,
I do.
a management plan,
Well,
if you apply it to your own house.
after that, I was proposing perhaps on the 4th Tuesday of the month, that at 6 PM is when the CONSCOM meets, and if you and I were to go to that meeting this month, what would that be, the 25th?
So they put us at the end of their agenda again?
Well, hopefully not, but basically, we would, you know, say that what we believe the management plan for
Are they
Herring
meet on a
Pond is,
Thursday?
Well,
and
I'm-
The 27th is
give them
Thanksgiving.
a
Oh, is
chance
it?
to comment back to us. Sure.
See what I know.
Sure.
Okay, so I will take
actually,
action to get us on that
I think they're
schedule.
considering their own fertilizer regulation, maybe that's the date of that meeting?
Oh, well,
Yeah, I
Great.
think they're doing something, I'm not
Just send them
sure,
an email.
but I think so.
I'll see if I can get on the agenda for it.
Wow.
I didn't seen it, I
That's
I
caught
don't know.
on.
Could we just send them, when we, send them version 1.0, and in the email say, this also, takes care of your request for Herring Pond Management Plan. You have seen it twice, we have addressed all your comments. If you disagree, please let us know if there's something else you would like to see. instead of going to their
Sure,
meeting.
sure, let's do that.
Just do it
You-
that way.
You take that on as a project?
Sure.
That's something that might fit into
Good,
you
great.
and not.
I need to move on to another subject as we come kind of to our close here. And Janet, that's thoughts we have on a brochure that would deal with the estuary. At the last meeting, we said, let's go into that project, and Janet agreed to lead it. The idea is that we will see if a brochure that speaks to the nutrient problems of the estuaries
It's
could be
long
made.
there. I have produced, this is for discussion, I did not spend a lot of time, as you will discover, things in red and what I don't know, lots of the other things I don't know. And I started talking about salt marshes for a lot of reasons, as opposed to the word estuary, but this
Okay.
is just because I had been having conversations and realized that salt marshes are actually the thing that's important, because it's important for climate change, they're the buffer. It's actually because I know there's an article coming up at town meeting to buy some land for diamondback terrapins that's available, so that salt marshes, that's mine. I did start, the first one says estuaries, and I changed it. So these are my playing thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I can pass one back. There you go.
I mean, I spent some time on thinking on some things and some time not thinking on things, and there's things that I know and I don't know what the words are, or I can look up. And I have no idea, Jane, whether you think that's anything in the lines of what we want. Because I think it's broader than just the fertilizer into the salt marshes. You can say more if it's salt marshes. It's a word people like. Anyhow.
Great, great. And
And well, I'll tell because of Charles. The map in the middle is the one that I know that you were liking with the contours. But I actually I just felt the one on the left, which maybe doesn't come up, or something like it, helped me more seeing where the places were, and I haven't put arrows in to show what they were. So anyhow, that's my thing. And I do also have, and you've had passed them out, I have the draft of the October minutes that I would like to
Okay, yeah,
circulate.
we can go to that. Basically, Janet is open for comments. We'll
Oh.
continue it next
I don't need this
next
one.
month.
You don't need that?
I read it on, when you.
Well, you've got one little red piece I've got to
Oh,
change.
I wasn't at the October meeting anyway, so.
I can't remember if I did you one, Jane. Okay. Yes, I
All
did.
right, well, let's go into review of the October
That's better.
14th minutes.
Send one to Mike. Did you,
Oh, okay.
I put them up there too if you
he's
want.
got it?
Is that October 14th?
That's October.
Yes, I have a draft of October 14th.
Oh, well, there's only one change, that's why, have you printed out your one from home?
Yep.
All right, see the red, because I got muddled up with something.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Janet, I don't have any comments.
Well, the only piece I was going to change from what I sent round on the email is I'd got muddled up with my own notes and had written in a date for the BOH meeting, and I shouldn't have. I should have just said in late November.
I sent out the
Right.
wrong date, that didn't help.
Yeah, no,
I've been getting mixed up on my calendar lately.
Well, I had a wonderful little note that I thought belonged to that, and it was actually belonging to the thing above it. Good.
all right. No one else on comments? All right, do we have a motion to accept?
Second.
All right. So those in favor, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is
I
that
was
right?
in there, so
Oh, you weren't there, 6.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Adele wasn't there.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh. Oh,
Who's counting?
okay, so we
Not
have
counting me, is it?
4.
So if I send you an electronic copy,
What?
I have a question,
Yeah.
Charles. I was just reading this over, and I think this is really interesting. There's been a lot of emphasis on alternative solutions to wastewater management, as you know, and oysters and aquaculture are a part of that. How many people here have gone out to where oysters are farmed? Has anybody ever done that?
Yeah, I mean, walk out in the bay and, yeah.
So, okay. Because, the health agents, there's actually, in Dennis, they have a big aquaculture center, and then there's, a laboratory down there as well. And we were going to do that, and I didn't know if anybody was interested in doing something like that, maybe
Well,
in the
Henry
nicer weather.
Henry Lind had a,
Oh, I know.
what happened to it?
There's
And there
also,
was an oyster thing in,
The
Brewster.
Wellfleet,
Because
Wellfleet has
that's,
put in an oyster.
that's one of the best ways to
Yeah.
get rid of
Yeah.
nitrate is
If
to
you get
have,
in and then,
a shellfish out there.
Audubon's pets
It
are
is.
they get rid of more nitrates than anything else.
Certain
And they're
ones happen
delicious.
because
And they're delicious on top of that, yeah.
All right,
Let's not forget that.
We-
I wasn't certain the oysters.
What a shame.
were-
That was- Yeah,
Because
they
they can only do
just
it
cut
in
the
the
money
summer.
off.
oh, yeah.
you know,
It came from
And
the
then they,
state.
but theoretically it
sources.
works, but
Yeah.
there's something about
Well,
it
that's
would
a
last
shame.
for 6 weeks, 6 months, get my 6 years, and then they might have to put in more oysters.
Mm.
They were testing
Had a
this
good
out
thing
in Rhode
going there.
Island
Oh,
or something.
yeah.
at the university.
all right.
Fantastic.
I thought it was,
Did,
he has interesting,
Well, if it ends up being productive, I'll let you know. I mean, I've been out on the flats, and I understand that aspect, but I've never been to where they do the testing, and that's down in Dennis. So,
I've tested for with
It's a lot of
everyone.
work.
all right,
Oyster
Yeah.
farmers really work hard.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
unbelievable.
Yes.
They've got to go
Yes.
there practically all the time and turn them over, throw out the dead ones,
Yep.
cold water.
Well, now there's a
Well, I
real
can
lot
dissect-
of
I know how to
regulation
dissect
related to
oysters.
temperature.
I'm sorry?
I've had to dissect oysters,
Oh, yeah.
because Audubon was testing for, and I've forgotten which one, it's not Vibro, it's the other one. It's got little round, little black doohickeys
Yeah.
that you have to look for.
Yeah, that's a shame that we cut that out of that shellfish farm there.
Yeah.
so, okay, I think we have minutes from Adele that we have.
now, we did the August and
We did those
September
already.
minutes.
Oh, we did?
That was it.
Thank you, all right. Well, the last item that I wanted to make some mention on, and then we can close, is that Cedar Pond, Orleans Marine and Freshwater Task Force has been moving on that subject. Where they've gotten to now is they made inquiries to Massachusetts Department of Transportation as to how to proceed to get a permit to operate the weir boards on the draining of Cedar Pond. And
It's to replace the weir boards, isn't it?
well,
That was what this morning, that's what the paper, the article, the paper said.
well, I haven't seen that article.
To
Okay.
replace the weir boards.
I attended their meeting yesterday, and I do have copies of a Mass Marine Fisheries letter and a Mass DOT letter that speaks to that. It's a little unclear in terms of the language that's being used in the letters, but basically, Mass DOT came back and said, okay, this is how you would get a proper permit for some authority, in other words, a person in the town of Orleans, to operate boards that would control the level of the Cedar Pond. And I bring that to your attention because that is really a very significant step in improving the habitat that is Cedar Pond. It's key. Unless you have controls of the weir boards, you don't have all the freedom of action you need.
Do they want to increase the salinity?
No,
Or
they want to turn
want
it back into a freshwater pond.
pond? Okay.
Yeah, now I have a copy also of about a 3 or a 5-page report coming back from SMAS, Ed Eichner, giving all of the technical understandings that you would need to then base your decisions on where the board should be. But the way I see it, and I've been to the site, is that there are occasional high tides that will push salt water into Cedar Pond. And being salt water, it's heavier than fresh water, and it settles to the bottom. And it stays there. It doesn't drain out because it's salt water and it's heavy, and the drainage is off the top over the weir boards. So they need to get to the point where they know in general how high the weirs should be, and they also need to a way of understanding how they're going to keep that salt water from occasionally getting over the board that's set there. But I see that as a very good progress. They've got a quality report from SMAS. They've got documents back from MassDOT. It's reasonable to think within a year, all those agencies will get to a particular elevation, and then they can try the technology that they think will slowly improve the water in Cedar Pond when that helps out, because it'll remove nitrate that would otherwise go down to Rock Harbor. And I think perhaps a decision on Rock Harbor agreed upon by all parties will only come after they've had a chance to try out that technology, and they need the weir boards. So basically, it's a permit for non-vehicular access to the DOT property where the current penstocks, weir structures are sitting. So, okay, well, that's the
They're
end.
also asking NSTAR to take actions, or I forget whether they're asking to meet with NSTAR, or they're asking NSTAR to take action with regard to the cormorant roosting. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
There you go.
Change the cormorant's attitude.
You haven't seen the dredging at Rock Harbor?
By the way, Charles,
Oh, is that
the salt water that you talked about in Cedar Pond, it will discharge to the groundwater, and it will leave.
Oops.
They have to stop at low tide.
I would think, because Audubon has that problem in Goose Pond,
think
and it is fresh water basically in the
Once they build
spring,
the barge,
Yeah.
and gets gradually a little bit more. And I was,
We were there.
as you said that, I was wondering,
It will discharge,
has to go
it'll
right.
discharge to the aquifer because it's on the down gradient side of the pond. But it's a slow process. I don't think it's a big deal.
Hey, these are great.
We saw the barges sitting out beyond the sandbar at low tide,
Yes.
waiting to come back in. Because I
Yes.
guess they dumped their loads and then they're just waiting for the tide to come.
Do they dump them or do they transfer them?
It's just space in the middle of the bay, isn't it?
I think
Yeah,
they're
they're
now
dumping
taken
them.
them somewhere deep.
They're dumping them there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. in the
An
middle.
was
approved
curious.
site.
It's awful
But-
close.
What they would, what
So
happened?
you said the wooden
Pylons for the piers?
pylons were rotting?
The poles that they pulled out
Yeah.
had sufficient mechanical damage at the
Yeah.
water level such that, to me,
Worthless.
I don't think they would use them again. The pole above the water was fine, the pole below the water, down in the mud, was fine, but
It was just that oxygenated, dredged.
You usually have the chains on them too.
Yeah.
The chains are going
They
up
abraded
the
'em.
spot too, aren't they?
Yeah, that might be it. What I saw was mechanical
I saw
damage.
it too, yeah.
It's all kind of chewed up there, like
Oh,
something, like a.
okay, that's interesting.
Might we be ready to adjourn?
Yes, ma'am. Do I have a motion? Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you
everybody.
too.